Hey, this is Liam with Newy Tech People, and this is the first installment of the Community Spotlight. I'm creating this series just to shine a bit more of a spotlight, if you will, on the community focus that Newcastle currently has. We've got a really strong selection of great meetups on that cover a pretty diverse set of topics. They're fairly well attended. They have a bunch of interesting speakers, but I'll always get asked the question as to whether it's worth attending. And the answer universally is yes, but I think there's value in bringing a few of the meetup organisers on periodically, having them discuss what the meetups are about, what they're looking to achieve, and hopefully the people that are maybe hangers-on to attending a meetup, this is the push for them to attend, get a bit more engaged in the community. I've always said that engagement in the community, be it meetups, volunteering, that sort of stuff, is really important in the progression of the community as a whole and the progression of an individual. So hopefully we'll have a bit more attendance come out of this. This is episode 1 with Andrew Stace, who runs the Newcastle Cybersecurity Group. First guest on the Community Spotlight, we've got Andrew Stace. How are you, mate?
Good. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, good to have you.
Oh, thank you.
So you've been in, I guess, the tech space for a decent amount of time, but fairly recently you've started up the Newcastle Cybersecurity Group with Clay.
Yes.
Well, what's the Newcastle Cybersecurity Group? What do you do? What's the deal?
Yeah, cool. So the Newcastle Cybersecurity Group really just sort of came out of a bit of a question to some of the people in the Newy community. Mm-hmm. You know, we don't have a cybersecurity group. We're all sitting here, and who would attend? You know, and a lot of people came forward and sort of said, "Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Let's do it." And so that was just by virtue of me asking the question, I became the person. And now we have a group. We're about 6 months in, about to start our first nighttime events. Typically, it's just been a morning event. But the cybersecurity group is really it's a forum, or it's a bit of a stage for Newcastle to talk about, discuss cybersecurity issues and present cybersecurity topics. And it really just allows us to highlight that there is a cybersecurity community here. People employed in it, people interested in it, and also people affected by it in other ways as well. So yeah, it's for students, it's for business owners, it's for professionals in the field. The goal is to try and keep it as accessible as possible, because obviously I know myself, I would happily have a very deep technical presentation be delivered, but I'm trying to be as mindful as I can about how not everyone can access that. Certainly I can't even access it myself, but I have an interest in wanting to access it. Other people, they're just kind of like, oh, that's not my cup of tea. So yeah, there's a lot of different people who can come to the cybersecurity event, hopefully get something out of it, hopefully take something away from it, maybe with more questions to ask. Yeah. But yeah, it's really to just start to talk about cybersecurity on a more public forum. Certainly, I think a lot of people internally in their organizations probably address it and talk about it, but it's to share some of that discussion.
And I guess it's a pretty salient point in that cybersecurity in organizations is a shared responsibility across realistically the entire organization. Yeah. It's a mindset thing. Yeah. And it's good that it is that accessible to be able to have different business stakeholders take some involvement in it. Have you had many people, I guess, from the wider business community attend? Have you had that sort of engagement?
So not as yet, but I do sort of see that to be more of just like early adopters are probably going to skew towards, well, number one, people who are part of the Newy community for sure. And most of the people who are part of the Newy community are already creators. Yeah. So most of them are going to have like a technical background. But I'm starting to reach out to some of the business groups and city councils and just sort of generally, you know, create the awareness that this thing exists, and more in, you know, you're welcome to come, or mention it to maybe someone in your team. And so whether or not we sort of go bottom up, you know, and we start with the technical people coming and, you know, being a part of the conversation, sharing their stories, or we do get some of that top level people coming along. We'll wait and see. But it is, where possible, trying to sort of provide a forum or a place or an opportunity even just to sit down at a table with some cybersecurity people, whether it's a presentation on the Thursday night or come for a coffee on the Friday morning. You can kind of have that opportunity to just talk to people who are interested in this.
100%.
bounce some questions off them, and not really be chewed out. It's more support orientated for sure. No one's perfect is kind of the idea, and sooner people start to accept that and look at ways of responding to it individually and at an organizational level, the better. Slow goals, I guess. We'll get there. I'm not expecting things to happen overnight.
These things take time.
Oh yeah,
absolutely,
massively.
Well, what's your background in cybersecurity? I guess you've popped the question on the Newie Slack.
Yeah.
Where does your interest come?
Yeah, I mean, so professionally, I've I would guess say fringed on cybersecurity roles, but never worked exclusively in one.
Sure.
Certainly going all the way back to the high school years, definitely had a fascination with it. It was probably a key motivator to continue to pursue into a tech role. But yeah, at the time, looking at Newcastle, I didn't see much opportunity. And so the direction I moved was more towards IT support. And I think this would probably be the same for a lot of people. Moved from, say, their course into a more IT-orientated role or a developer-orientated role. And they've just sort of come across, I guess, the cybersecurity responsibilities or responsibilities which would, I guess, now be kind of categorized under cybersecurity responsibilities, confidential information, the way looking at how you're storing data in a database, whether or not you've got HTTPS set up, going further down the rabbit hole, what ciphers you're using to set up your HTTPS, what protocols, there's an endless number of rabbit holes to explore and look at optimizing or improving systems so that they're more resilient and or better protected. But yeah, generally it's sort of my approach to it has been more from that IT support, sysadmin, and then more of a web developer sort of background, and server hosting.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Bit of a broad. I don't know. We'll say existential question.
Yeah. Good.
What do you? Yeah. Always fun.
Yeah.
What are you looking to achieve with the group? What is the end goal, if there is one?
So, I mean, the first one's obviously awareness. There's a bit of awareness inside and outside of Newcastle. Inside, that people can sort of just come and partake in a conversation that's pretty well focused just on cybersecurity, not as much broadly spread over, we've got IoT meetups, we've got coder groups meetups, they're great meetups. I do recommend everyone to check out all the meetups that we have in Newcastle.
Absolutely.
But this is just one that's more focused on cybersecurity. So the people who are already in Newcastle kind of have a forum and a place to share their stories. People who are transitioning towards cybersecurity certification and or cybersecurity skill sets, they can talk about what they're learning. But it's also that regional and external awareness as well. People from Sydney, Canberra, Brisbane, wherever they are, Port Macquarie, Nelson's Bay even, just sort of putting a flag out there and just sort of saying, hey, look, there's a group here. We're doing cybersecurity here. Here's some of our stories, and people can sort of recognize us as having these achievements in a cybersecurity domain. And, it is that sort of, there's a circular cycle which can kind of come from it, going down the more existential thing. When I talk about super systems and things and go all Marxist. But there is this cycle of identity. And if we don't sort of talk about what we can sort of do in a cybersecurity domain here in Newcastle, and people will just sort of believe that we don't have an industry. We don't have that talent. We don't have those skills, those people here. And people will just sort of believe that it's a Sydney thing, it's a Canberra thing, which is false, right? So yeah, phase one is really just about creating awareness and seeing what that does in terms of conversations it creates, and seeing what just comes out of it. But hopefully I think I would love to see Newcastle recognised for its local talent and a lot of its local communities, what they're doing. I think Newcastle's very exciting, especially in the tech scene. Last 12, 24 months has really blossomed. We always had a long-running history of tech meetups, but now it actually feels like there's a really strong tech culture, a good movement of tech people, and
A lot more cohesive.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the collaboration between the different meetups, and the fact that there is like a body of creators and a body of people who love tech is really positive. Yeah, it's here in our backyard. There's no reason it shouldn't be. And I think graduates, high school students, all these other people can start to realize like the beaches here are pretty good. And I don't have to move down to Sydney or Canberra, which is like, give it up. So yeah, they can study here, stay here, graduate here, get employed here, and do something that they might have a passion for, cybersecurity or whatever it is. But even if they end up still in that IT space, just sort of seeing how there is a more general move of most organizations to address cybersecurity. And so again, you can sort of work here in a more cybersecurity than not role than before.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like the emergent aspect as well. As much as there's us looking at ourselves and putting the flag out for other communities to recognize us, there is also that ability to sort of respond to the need to address the cybersecurity concerns that are around us as well.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I guess you lead on to an interesting topic, and I think this is a question that a lot of people are asking in relation to cybersecurity. Cybersecurity has historically been a field that's maybe been a bit tied to networking admins and that sort of space, where it hasn't necessarily been its own industry, I guess, until relatively recently. And especially in Newcastle, there's been a lot of people historically that have filled the role of someone in cybersecurity, but maybe have just had the hat of sysadmin. And I guess because it's a relatively new community, it's only just recently had a concerted community involvement. It's only recently had sort of big organizations come to the party and have specific cybersecurity divisions. And again, another existential broad question.
Yeah, good.
But every man and their dog says data science, data analytics, ML, throw all your buzzwords in there.
Yeah.
And cybersecurity are the two big growth areas in IT for the next decade.
Yeah.
How do we, as a region, foster growth in cybersecurity going forward?
Yeah. So I certainly would look at two aspects of it, which is that, like cybersecurity or cybersecurity concerns is a long-standing requirement, right? Like as soon as systems became digitized and or accessible over a wire, people were protecting it. People are encrypting it and doing different things to try and protect their assets and protect their information. What's probably becoming more emergent now is the ability to be more specialized. So instead of necessarily needing to sit in a generalized space where you have some footprint or proxy to a true cybersecurity role, because so many organizations are digitizing a lot of their assets, they've got a bigger attack service or a bigger collection of assets that require their business to be operational and or to generate value. And so the requirement to have those assets and things protected from threat or interruption of service is more pertinent now and requiring more specialized skills. So it's just, I guess, there is certainly more external pressure on businesses and systems to respond to a variety of threats and problems. And now, that just demand is kind of like it's best to push that on a single person or a specialized team within an organization instead of having it sort of like spread abstractly across a set of people's responsibilities. That still does mean, though, that again, we started with it's kind of like cybersecurity or security isn't everyone concern.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just how do you fit within a team now where someone can sort of conduct you, right? We were potentially probably like a part of an orchestra or band who didn't have the conductor. And now that we're actually trying to sound really good and keep to tempo and pitch and all that, we've got a conductor out the front now who's kind of watching things and trying to keep everyone coordinated. So that's kind of, I guess, what I feel is happening at large in the industry, but specifically here in Newcastle. There's just more opportunity, I guess, for for talent to sort of fill specialized roles.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And this is a question I'll get quite a bit. The position we sit in the community is that we end up being, to an extent, the first port of call for people moving into the area or people really trying to break into IT as a field. But a question I'll get ad nauseum is, I'm interested in cybersecurity. I've just finished high school or I've just finished comp sci at uni. How do I break into cybersecurity as a field? So cybersecurity, relatively new industry, hasn't really had the ability to establish a defined pathway. But what do you think that pathway may look like as it stands?
So that's harder, I think, to sort of anticipate a set path, because there's so many different individual differences that would come into that. Obviously there is an underlying passion or aptitude that you might have. I would sort of say, number one, come to Newcastle Cybersecurity Group, ask those questions, and you'll get a variety of responses. A lot of people will tell you different things. This was my journey. This is how I got in here, and this worked for me. Maybe it'll work for you. So come along would be the first anchor. That's for sure. Come along, ask that question all the time. The other benefit of that is you're going to start networking with people. You are going to potentially be sitting across the table from one of the heads of cybersecurity at one of the big companies in Newcastle. Whichever company that is, you're talking to some of the decision makers on these teams. So there's an awesome opportunity for you to mingle with some of the best cybersecurity heads that we have in Newcastle. You also be able to just generally hear from them, even if you're not asking the questions, which is still really positive. But then, so I've done the TAFE program, I've done uni, and I've done work the whole time while I was sort of studying in each of these things. I do have a bias towards probably working to understand things. That's just how I learn, is by doing. So uni was great for academically understanding some stuff and getting to the fundamentals, really empowering to sort of have that, as a card up your sleeve. But it quite often or sometimes doesn't actually translate into the real world. And so that's where working is really important. Again, going on the other side, TAFE really tries to sort of achieve that. Like day one, you kind of know how to build a server and do all these technical things. But at the same time, going through TAFE, did TAFE first before uni. The whole time I went through TAFE was more please. I get this point and I understand how to do this, but I still don't understand these more abstract qualities.
You don't have the theoretical understanding.
I don't have the theoretical, you just sort of, you get some of those theoretical things, and it just opens up your mind a lot more, and you can move more broadly, more quickly. I don't think that there is a one size fits all approach to it. You might want to go hands-on, that works for you. Go TAFE, then try and get an entry-level IT role and start focusing on skilling up on maybe a cert, demonstrate that you've got this aptitude or ability. And, sometimes it is about ticking boxes a little bit. Certificates help with that. But, at the end of the day, it's do it because you enjoy it. You know what I mean? And just keep trying to move towards this thing. Come to the Newcastle Cybersecurity Group, raise it as a question, and keep asking questions. That's it at the end of the day.
It's more of a mindset thing than anything else. Obviously, you still need some sort of structured learning to be able to actually apply it, but it's very much a mindset of curiosity and trying to learn. In this case, what potential pathways are, what the pertinent threats are at the moment. Just having that mindset and that awareness is 99% of the battle.
Oh, absolutely. And going a bit more meta, just because it's a moving space, just getting good at learning and knowing how you learn and how to build confidence in topics by yourself without potentially somebody patting you on the shoulder and saying, you understand it. Operating in an unknown environment as well helps. Because you can be surrounded by a lot of unknowns in cybersecurity, and you need to operate with some degree of confidence with those unknowns as well. And maybe that comes more from I don't know how to answer that in terms of like practical versus fundamental. I feel like having fundamental knowledge would help you understand the unknowns better, where your boundaries are in this world. But you need to know you, right? Like you need to know what works for you. And but that said, specifically when it comes to cybersecurity, come to the Newcastle Cybersecurity Group, ask that question, and just be a part of a conversation. That's the best advice I could give. And the fact that we now have a platform or a forum for that to take place, that's in person. It's not like a chat room or a message board or something. The information can move a lot faster in person.
Absolutely.
Like if this dialogue that we've done was on instant chat, would still be probably in the first 2 questions. Because you can just deliver so much information face to face.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I think it would be remiss of me not to mention that the uni has a Masters of Cybersecurity, fairly recently developed program. And the uni's, I guess, sunk a fair bit of money, a fair bit of time into developing a pretty compelling program. First impressions, they sound fairly positive. It sounds like people are getting a decent amount out of the content. So, there's another avenue to potentially explore there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It always comes back to that, like, I guess, like what do you want to know? Like, I think the university presents a lot of opportunity for people who maybe have an IT degree to expand, or a comp sci degree, or even a law degree, right? Like you don't actually have to feel like in order to access this space, you have to be a tech. Like, absolutely not. Like, you can be a business person, you can be a law person, you can be marketing, you can be design. There is a broad set of like cybersecurity roles that do not require like an explicit technical know-how, but being aware of the requirements of cybersecurity, what it kind of means to an organization, how controls can potentially not be accepted by the culture of certain teams. It's a big picture. Like, it's a very big picture, and it's not all tech. It's definitely not all tech.
100%.
So yeah, you can access masters. You can access also the like industry certification.
Yeah. So
like
WSP, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. There's no shortage of ways in which you can start to path towards it. Like, I'm a big believer in more of the cow paths to figure out where to build the footpaths or the cow tracks, or whatever it is.
Like desire paths sort of thing.
Yeah, you sort of like, you set something up and you expect people to flow through it, but sometimes you're better off just watching what people autonomously do. A big believer in that approach.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So Thursday night, the first nighttime meetup for NCSG. What's the deal? What's happening?
Yeah, cool. So basically, we can come to NIB building out at Honeysuckle, and it starts at about 6 o'clock, should wrap up at about 8. But you can come along, and the team at NIB are really going to sort of talk about who they are. So Wayne Bozza, the head of cybersecurity at NIB, is going to be sort of describing his team, describing his path in. Each of the other people in his team, they're going to describe their paths into cybersecurity roles, but they're also going to talk about like how they as a team are sort of like separated off into their particular position descriptions or their roles. Someone sits in risk, someone sits in the more IT tech side of things, and how do they communicate with each other? How do they communicate outside their team? I'm really excited to sort of hear about how their team is put together and how they came to form that team. Because I think just personally, my background is broad in experience, but I've not actually gotten to work in a cybersecurity dedicated team. So hearing how that job requirements to protect the systems forged certain positions and how they came to build a set team is going to be pretty interesting.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. At a very practical level, someone listening to this, they might not already be a member, they might not be part of the Newy Slack, they might not have an awareness of the group and I guess how to get involved. So how do they get involved?
Yeah, so we have a website, newcastlecybersecurity.group.
So .group is like the top level domain.
Yeah. It's new, it's innovative.
Very agile.
Yeah,
Yes.
very agile. There's good synergy there with the SEO and stuff. But so you can access our website, newcastlecybersecurity.group. You can also find us on Meetup. So you go into the Meetup, search for Newcastle Cybersecurity Group. We're also a part of, and I'd really strongly recommend kind of anyone and everyone to join the newey.com.au.
NEWWWIE.
World Wide Web, www. Yeah. So yeah, newey.com.au.
No, just
Just
.com.
.com, yeah.
Just .com.
And so that's kind of like an underlying body or group of tech creators and just people in the tech space. So designers, front end dev, back end dev, cybersecurity, everything. It's a really good place for you to go to that website, join the Slack channel, and it's almost like a private social media space.
Yeah,
it's like our own Twitter, it's our own Facebook chat, or whatever it is, but it's this glue between all the groups, and it's a good conversation that sort of keeps going in between the meetups. So I'd really recommend checking out the Newey website, joining the hashtag security channel. Throw out some hashtag. No, but I'm not going to dab. No.
Good.
So join the Slack channel. Come hang out in the security channel, and otherwise, check out the website. Check out the meetup group. Reach out in the comments. Reach out on Slack. You probably could email me as well. I don't think I've hidden that. I'm not going to announce it just because I think it's better to contact things in a more publicly set space. There's more benefit to the question. I'll give you an example as well of somebody sort of being a bit vulnerable and reaching out. A student certainly sort of said they don't think that they should come. They don't know if they've got something to offer.
Okay.
And we were like, no, you should come. You should ask your questions. It's for everyone. And obviously because that student stood up and asked that question on the Slack channel, a couple of other students saw it and liked it, and they took that cue as well. So, if that experience sort of takes place in a private email discussion, you can still private message me. It doesn't always have to be public,
Of course.
But there's just a better opportunity, I think, for everyone else. Again, going back to it, not everyone's perfect. Everyone has their anxieties, fears, and all these social things. And so, I definitely think that we all benefit from just being more mindful of everyone and trying to build a system that's, in line with all of these different people.
For sure. For sure. Anything, I guess, in the wider cybersecurity community at large, podcasts, blogs, that sort of stuff that you really strongly recommend? Yeah,
I really strongly recommend B-Sides Canberra. It is a little bit more of a technical conference down in Canberra, end of April, start of May. I only went to the first one last year, but very inviting. Pretty much went there by myself, stumbled into some other people from the Newey scene down there. But even when I was just sort of wandering around, chatting with strangers, there was no shortage of people who are open to communicate all sorts of different ideas and topics. And
for sure,
it was really good. So I'd strongly recommend checking out B-Sides Canberra, and just getting a good feel for how inclusive this community is, or the cybersecurity community at large. There's another podcast that's good fun on YouTube, Security Now, I think it's called. I forget who the actual person talking on the Security Now podcast is. But it's good for, I think, every couple of weeks. I don't think it's every week, but every now and then, they release a podcast, a couple hours long, to just like talk about what's happening in the industry at large. A lot of conversations about ransomware. But it's good to just sort of hear about it, and it's good to just sort of be reminded that a lot of this phenomenon is happening. People are being affected, and it's not small stuff. It's real. It's big. It's very likely going to continue to impact more and more people,
100%.
Unless we start to sort of like adapt our industry and adapt our organizations and businesses to be better, resilient to some of these threats and problems. And a lot of it's low hanging fruits as well. It's not like big change, right? Like we talked a bit about, building a team that responds to it and having specialized roles. A lot of stuff can just be low hanging fruits to just try and do things right. And then you're covered from a lot of simple problems.
The old don't use the same password everywhere, that sort of stuff. And that's, simple stuff that that most in the tech community are probably aware of and practice, hopefully.
Yeah.
But that for someone who's maybe not as engaged in technology, that's stuff that will make a real meaningful difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Yeah, I think it's there's always like I think it's easy to become aware of what you should do. It's infinitely harder to actually put it into practice and follow through with it. It's like everyone knows how to diet, but no one actually has the discipline to diet. Everyone knows how to exercise, but no one has the discipline to actually exercise. And it is that discipline as well that's kind of a part of this. And so there is a resistance, right? Yeah. There is a path of least resistance that does form, where a control sometimes is a barrier that stops you from achieving something. But why is the control there? And how do you accept it and integrate it so that it is a part of your job, it is a part of your processes, and you don't fight it? Because I can guarantee if your system goes down due to a ransomware incident, fighting that is a problem that's infinitely harder than typing your password 5 seconds, 10 seconds, a bit longer each time.
Ask Toll Group.
Yeah. Heart goes out to the IT team on Toll Group.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's that's a serious thing. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Google 100%. Toll Group ransomware or Toll Group cybersecurity, and just be amazed at like how critical some of these problems can be to huge enterprises, huge organizations, and they probably have teams trying to protect them as well. And it's just perfect storm, maybe, or whatever it is. It's a real problem for business to start becoming conscious to it and accepting that there has to be a conversation and a path towards change. But it's that's an interesting one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Righto. I think we'll leave it there. Looking forward to seeing you on Thursday. Looking forward to seeing the talk and seeing what seems to be going to be a well-attended event.
Yeah.
Really, I'll pop all of the links in the description to meet up, Newy Slack, that sort of stuff. Yeah. See you Thursday.
Oh, thank you.
Cool. Cheers.
Pleasure.